On this National Day of Joy, we'd like to welcome America's Joy Magnet. Her name is Shari Alyse. She is also a motivational speaker and author of Love Yourself Happy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm joyful to be here.
Yes, and so I've seen, we've had a chance to chit chat a little bit before we got started here, and they always say that, yes, misery does love company, but joy can also be infectious. Why do you think that is?
Oh man, well, I mean, it's just the energy that you put out. I think we often forget that we actually get to create our lives. We get to create and be in charge of the ways that we feel. It doesn't mean that we block out the things that are happening in the world and the challenging moments, but it means that we get to choose how we respond. And joy, when we respond with joy, people remember, oh, I get to feel that too.
Yes, and you are yourself the joy magnet. So why do you think you consider yourself a joy magnet?
Well, it's interesting because I used to get called when I was growing up. People would say to me, "You're always so happy. You're always so happy." And I come from I experienced childhood trauma, so there was this internal part of me that didn't feel this happy that everybody was talking about. But I also knew that there was something inside that just kept driving me and pushing me to find the good in things. And it wasn't until many years later when I took a missionary trip to Haiti right after their earthquake, and I had experienced something that I never had before, and it was this palpable joy. And I realized, oh, this is what people are talking about. This is what they see in me, because I believe happiness is something that's on the outside, things that happen to us, and joy is a state of being. It's who we are, and we just need something to activate it.
Well, you've just addressed my next question. That is, what is the difference between joy and happiness?
Yes, absolutely. So, a lot of times happiness in and of itself is dependent on circumstances. So when something good is happening, we feel happy. And then suffice to say that when it's not going so good, we feel unhappy. And joy, I kind of think of as like a ticklish spot. So it just needs to be touched, activated, and that's how we experience it. So it's more of an internal than an external.
Right. And it sounds like you create joy. Happiness almost happens to you. The world, I think, can agree that we need more joy. And in fact, maybe you can tell us some statistics as to the lack thereof that's actually experienced amongst us here in the United States, for instance.
Yes. So, before the pandemic, symptoms of depression and anxiety, about 1 in 10 U.S. adults were experiencing it. And then, of course, with the pandemic and social injustice and political division, all of that, it's now 4 in 10 U.S. adults experience it. So it's definitely something, and it's on the rise. So we're still feeling it. There's still a lot that's happening. We're processing grief. There's all of that. So being able to have tools and practices to ignite our joy, to remember it, to activate that joy spot is so important right now.
And you're also a consultant. So when someone comes to you and they say, goodness, Shari, I'm not happy. I'm a very unhappy person. I don't feel like things go my way. How do I bring that back into my life? What would you say would be one of the first things to teach someone to then start developing not the happiness, but the joy?
So it's more about, it's actually some of my tips today, but it's realizing about the things that we do have. So people often, our brains are wired for negativity biologically. It was a way to protect us back from predators. And so we often only notice the negative, the things that aren't going right with our lives. So I immediately bring people right back to, I want to know what's going well in your life. I want to know what you have right now. And even just that mindset flip immediately lifts people in a way that they didn't even realize was possible.
That's fascinating. I never thought about it that way, as almost a survivor instinct to focus on the negative. I just thought that was a character flaw.
So many people do. And that's the thing that I love. I love to let people off the hook. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. We all do it. And that's why this is a practice. Joy is a practice. It's like building that muscle.
Indeed. So how do people find out more information? How do they get in contact with you if they want to reclaim their joy?
They could just go right to my website, ShariAlyse.com. I'm all over social media, really just building community and really just spreading that joy.
That's wonderful. Shari, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I feel more joyful just having spoken with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We're back in 2 minutes.